link. So I went live very shortly, very quickly. And let me just make sure that I am live over here. Why does it not say live? Hold on. We'll do. 1 hour. I got to give him a call in 1 hour. All right, there we go. All right, we're back. I think we're back. Yes, we are. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. I went live and I did not have the right link. So I had to stop that feed and get back on touch. All right, so today's discussion is on the tentative interim amendments. Tentative interim amendments and the certified amending motions. So it's I want to just give I'm going to teach you how to swim. No, teach you how to fish. Yeah, and swim, right? So you never know when you're going to be in the deep end. So anyway, I'm going to teach you a little bit about where to go to find information on NFPA's website. We're going to take a look at some of the certified amending motions, and we'll talk about the process. We'll bring up some of the regulations that govern the development of NFPA documents. We will take a look at some of the status of let me just close this. Status of, what do you call it? Of these tentative interim amendments. Boy, I cannot say that word. That's just terrible. All right, so let me bring this up over here, and I think I can do this. All right, so what I want to do is, and I see Robert from Omaha, David Engelhardt. Oh man, I haven't talked to you guys in a while. Hopefully you are doing well, David. Hopefully you are doing well. It doesn't look like my chat is working over here, so I've got my chat up here. Let me bring up my LinkedIn chat because I'm not, for some reason, my account is not updating over here, so I am going to just bear with me. Good. Whoops. Hold on. There we go. All right. So I can see my chats over here on LinkedIn. I can see my chats on YouTube. And over here is where I got my NFPA 70. So I was just in the process of updating my spreadsheet on the certified amending motions and temporary interim amendments. And how do I know it's temporary interim amendments? Because let's go up to the top here. There's your first draft, your second. Now I'm in the next edition, and I'm gonna start from scratch here. But let's go back to current and prior editions. Tentative interim amendments is your TIA. Live now for 1 hour. All right. Okay, so let's start from scratch. Let me get my mouse. And if we start from a new window, the first thing we're going to do, there's a couple things. Hey, we got Nihad El Sharif. Hey, I left you. I know, Nihad, I left you, brother. I'm sorry about that. I realized I was like, I went live, and because this happened to me before, I didn't set up my restream to point to the YouTube because I created a live session there, and I want to make sure I streamed to that because people were there waiting. So, in any case, Robert, what happened? Well, you're with me now, brother, so don't worry about what happened. It happened. Stuff happens. Okay, so let's do this. To start from scratch, there's a couple, I have a few links down below about standards, policies, and procedures in the development process. So if we go to nfpa.org/70, that'll take us straight to the National Electrical Code, NFPA 70. So there's your NEC. And if you do a /70, it's a shortcut. I tell you the truth, I don't even know. I'm not even going to worry about it. I don't even know how to get there by navigating from nfpa.org. So take my word for it and just go nfpa.org/70. All right. Hey, Brian Rock in the house. Okay, so what you do is you've got to have a couple things under your belt first. The process. I'm going to do a separate thing on the process. It's a separate presentation, just talking about the NFPA process. But right now, I want to focus on TIAs and CAMs. Now, keep in mind that you can put a tentative interim amendment on an older version of the National Electrical Code. Why would you want to do that? Why would somebody put a tentative interim amendment on the 2020 code or an older version? It could be that a state is enforcing that edition of the National Electrical Code, and you want to make sure that this tentative interim amendment is put in place to fix a problem. It could be remember, tentative interim amendments. Let's do this. Let's go to the technical committee. This is the only way I know how to find this document. You go to guidelines and classifications. You click on technical committee. This is an important document I'm going to show you a link to that you need to have a copy of. Go to technical committee, guidelines and classifications. It's going to take you to this page. And if you go to regulations and policies, and the link is up there. You go to nfpa.org, codes-and-standards/standards-development/regulations and policies, and you'll get to this page. Now, you have regulations governing the development of NFPA standards. Very important document where you will find information on the process that we are going to be talking about. So look at section 5, and I put these on, I don't even need them. Section 5 is tentative interim amendments. Who may submit a TIA, content of a proposed TIA, preliminary screening of a TIA, evaluation of emergency nature, publication. Because remember, a tentative interim amendment, you have to show two things. One, you have to have the technical thing that you want to change and why it's a problem. But you also have to show a sense of emergency nature. So, for example, you may say, look, you may say, I don't know, you may suggest a change that's more like an errata, but it was voted on. You may say, look, it's not an emergency in nature because it's not going to reduce electrical safety. It's not going to be an issue with regard to life safety, and it is something that could be handled next cycle. So you may not pass the sense of urgency, although you may have a very good technical argument. Now, in some cases, you may have a very poor technical argument, or maybe a solution to a problem that is not loved by everybody, because it's in the code panel members, when they start voting at these, they may say, yeah, it is it does have a sense of urgency. It is a problem that needs to be fixed ASAP, but they don't like your technical arguments, right? So you have to meet those two questions, and we'll talk more about it. But Section 5 covers tentative interim amendments. So let's go to page 27. Page 27, where's the page numbers? There's 9. Page 27. Let's go to page 27. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, so Section 5, tentative interim amendments. We scroll up to the top, and this is who may submit a tentative interim amendment. Anyone can submit this. You don't even need to be an NFPA member, but you have to put it in your name. Don't put it in someone else's name. Put it in your name and your organization. Now, the content. Each TIA has to be submitted to Standards Council Secretary and shall include the following. You have to identify the submitter, the affiliation. You have to identify the standard that you're trying to change. You have to identify the text of the amendment that you want to make. You have to state the problem. You have to have your signature. You have to have a statement of the basis of conclusion that the TIA is an emergency nature requiring prompt action. It's not a, hey, I wanted this and, I think you should have done it. And it's not a way to circumvent the normal process. Okay. So you have to show that your change is critical to safety and it needs to be in place immediately. And then you get a written agreement from at least 2 members of the involved technical committee. So, for example, I did a few TIAs to Panel 7 in Article 555, and I did one to Panel 10. Now, the TIAs I wrote for Panel 7, I went to Panel 7 members, and I got more than 2 members. Here's the key. Here's the important thing. You want to make sure you vet what you are perceiving as a major issue with as many people technically on that code panel as you can. In reality, if you can contact every one of them, it would be great to get their thoughts on it. What I ended up doing was I think on Panel 7, I had maybe 5 different code panel members who were involved, at least 5. Now, you're only a minimum of 2 is needed. But I believe that the success of your TIA will be dependent on the success of your TIA is dependent upon you got to get 2/3. So you want to get agreement. You want to hear the arguments against. Even more importantly, you want to hear somebody who says, I don't like this for these reasons, so that you can improve it. So, and that's what I did on Panel 2 and on Panel 10. My TIA on Panel 10, I vetted, but it was such a obvious issue on Panel 10. We'll review my TIA and the status of it so far. So we'll take a look at a few of mine because they're mine, and I can give you where my head was at in that regard. So, and a written agreement of at least 2 members could be an email. So in my case, I sent my TIA to a handful of panel members, and they all got back to me with yes, we agree, yes, we agree, yes, we agree. And then I took that and I made that a part of my record to show that I did contact code panel members, and they agreed. Now, there is a or correlating committee. It's not an and correlating, because a lot of people think that you need to get a correlating committee member approval to be able to submit a TIA, and that is wrong. It is 2 members of the involved technical committee or correlating committee to the processing of the TIA. So if you got 1 panel member and 1 correlating committee member, great. If you got 2 correlating committee members, great. But again, your focus needs to be on the code-making panel. You want to make sure that the members of the code-making panel don't take issue with what you're trying to do. And if they do have an issue with what you're trying to get done, if they have a disagreement, then you want to take that as valuable input to improve your language. And don't let one person put you down. If you contact 5 people from a code making panel, and and 4 of them are good to go, and one guy's just not agreeing with you, that doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong, right? So you at least have 4. Now, Brian, once adopted, those jurisdictions do have to adopt specifically any TIA. That is true. Now, it's true for some cases. Now, keep in mind that, like, for example, the 2023 process, there are temporary interim amendments that are in play right now that will be a part of the first edition of the National Electrical Code. So the language will be in the National Electrical Code and will be adopted by jurisdictions. Now, to Brian's point, if let's say that the 2020 code, let's say that right now, let's take a look at it. If I go to current and prior editions, you'll see temporary, interim, tentative. I keep saying temporary, tentative, interim amendments listed. Now let's go to, try to think of one that was after the fact. Let's take a look at, we got to go past the first draft meetings, and you've got to go into, and you'll see where this blue line will break. Right here, there's your second draft, not there. If you keep scrolling down, other committee information, that's where you want to go to find your tentative interim amendments. All right, so TIAs, let's take a look. This is Code Panel 2. Let's go to this last one, ballots final. Let's look at when the ballots were done. So this is July of 2019. This is the 2020 code. So this change, for example, D3, because it was released before the first edition of the 2020 version, this TIA was a part of the first edition of the National Electrical Code. Let's try a different one. I want to find one that has a later date. This is 2018. Code Panel 10, Code Panel 11. How about this one? July 2019. So all of these are before, and I can probably search till the cows come home. But in any case, if an amendment to the 2020 code was released after it was published, after that first edition is out there, and after your state may have adopted, like, so for example, you might have a tentative interim amendment that was adopted in, during the second printing, right? And if your state adopts language that has that TIA a part of it, then that TIA is enforced. But if that TIA was not a part of the process that your state or your jurisdiction adopted, then you would need legislative action to actually recognize that language in the TIA. Now, having said that, what your local inspector can do is leverage 90 . If you go to the National Electrical Code, your inspector may be able to leverage 90.2. The authority having jurisdiction for enforcing this code may grant exception to the installation of conductors and equipment that are not 90.2c, that are not under the exclusive control of the electric utilities and are used to connect the electric utility supply system, provided such installations are outside of the building or structure and readily accessible location. That's not the one. That's not the one. I thought it was 90.7. 10 of the code. Where's it at? Enforcement, 90.4. This code is intended to be suitable for mandatory application. The authority having jurisdiction for enforcement of the code has the responsibility for making interpretations of the rules, for deciding on the approval of equipment and materials, and for granting the special permissions contemplated in a number of the rules. By special permission, the authority having jurisdiction may waive specific requirements in this code or permit alternative methods where it is assured that the equivalent objectives can be achieved or by establishing and maintaining an effective safety. So an inspector could use 90.4 to let you do something that a TIA that may not have been adopted under the law, they have that provision to be able to be flexible. Now, they may or may not. TIA 20-8 was the first TIA after issuance for 430.252. So you may be able, an inspector may be able to reference a TIA to help support their decision on something. Remember, an inspector, just like, I have a professional engineering license, you don't want to go out on the limb on your own. You accept a lot of liabilities. So inspectors, licensed electricians, licensed professional engineers try to fall back on industry accepted practices, principles, standards, and codes, and things of that nature. So if, for example, there was an issue with the language in a code document that maybe an exception was added or language in the exception, they can reference that TIA and say, look, I'm gonna flex my 90.4 capabilities here, and I'm going to recognize that the solutions that the committee has weighed in on fixing this issue, and this is how I'm going to inspect it. I think that would probably be a valid. Not all inspectors may do that though, right? But in some cases they can. So you just got to be careful. You got to make sure you communicate with your electrical inspectors and have a good relationship there so that you understand what it is they're expecting during their inspections. So in any case, all right. So there are TIAs, and it was 430. So that would be motors. And I believe that is chapter 11 or code making panel 11. And you said it was 20-8 was the first TIA after issuance. 20-8 TIA 20-8 TIA 20. I'm not sure. 70-8. These are the code panel 11 stuff. Let's take a look at 1462. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can search till the cows come home. But in any case, all right. So now you know who can put a TIA in. The Standards Council Secretary shall have all review TIAs and return to the submitter without processing any submission that does not conform to 5.2, right? On its face does not state adequate basis, where, however, now I'll tell you what happened on mine. Let's take a look at my TIAs. I did a couple on panel 10. So let's take a look at panel 10. Got to scroll down to other. There's your second draft. Remember, we got to go to other. Second draft. Other committee information. And I'm going to go to panel 10. 10. And we'll take a look at what my submittal was. Okay. So I submitted this to add the word energized. And the reason I did that was because in 215.15, this is a new section. What it used to say was barriers shall be placed such that no uninsulated, ungrounded bus bar or terminal is exposed to inadvertent contact by persons or maintenance equipment while servicing load terminations in panel board, switchboard, switchgear, blah, 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 blah. When the disconnecting device to which the tap conductors are terminated is in the open position. Well, here's the problem with the way that language is. Every uninsulated, ungrounded bus bar would have to be barriered, regardless of if the main was, say it's a panel board, if the main was put in the, was turned off, and the only energized lugs are at the line side of that main overcurrent protective device, say main circuit breaker in a panel board, that's what the intent was, to barrier off that line side energized lugs that remain energized. But what we ended up with is that any uninsulated, ungrounded bus bar or terminal that's exposed to inadvertent contact would have to be barriered. So what I simply did was add the word energized. So barriers should be placed such that no energized, uninsulated, ungrounded bus bar or terminal is exposed to inadvertent contact by persons or maintenance equipment while servicing load terminations in panel boards supplied by feeder taps or transformer secondary conductors when the disconnecting device to which the tap conductors are terminated is in the open position. So when the main is in the open position, you have to have the barrier energized, uninsulated, ungrounded bus bar. And so when I first submitted this, I can't remember how I did it, but the secretary contacted me and said, based on the editors, they wanted to make some suggested changes for clarity, and they helped format and get me what I needed. So that was a great part of the process, was communicating with someone saying, hey, look, I know what you're going for, but you might need a comma here or you might not need a comma here. And this is the right way to do it. And then we were able to make that modification, get support from others on that were supporting that. And we made that change. So 215.15, this was my technical change. This was my substantiation. The current language does not identify that the need to barrier is on energized, uninsulated, ungrounded bus bars, blah, 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 blah. Adding the word energized makes this requirement clear. And then the emergency nature, the standard contains an error or omission that was overlooked during the regular revision process. And I added a note. Without making that change, the literal interpretation of this section is such that it would be required to place barriers in areas not intended by the requirement. And without that language, the mere fact that no possible solution exists would lead to this section not being enforced, exposing electrical workers to a shock hazard that was supposed to be addressed. So I forgot the word be. So in any case, I'll give you a feeling for the votes. So then now we're in circulation. And let me just speak about that for now. So what happens is when you submit your TIA, the secretary will look at it and we'll look at the adjustments and look at what you're saying, work with you to make sure they got the right language, and then it goes out for public review. So anybody in the public could comment on these, and also the code making panel can comment on these because they're seeking input. So the code panel gets balloted. And then what happens is, after they ballot the code panel, they send the ballots out to the code panel members again so that you can see how other code panel members voted and what their statements were. And those statements, so I might say, for example, on this one here, I might say, if I am a code panel member, Kevin Arnold is my principal, I'm the alternate, so Kevin Arnold may say, I don't like this, and he may vote against it. And then when it's recirculated, he may see everybody else's comments and change his position based upon reading statements from others. Or he might see that, hey, look, all of these people are agreeing with this and I'm not. He may decide to call one of the code panel members and say, hey, why are you voting this way? And then either change his position based upon his dialogue, or maybe convince others to change their positions because they're not seeing what he's seeing. They may all look at Kevin's comment and a negative ballot. And when you have a negative ballot, you have to have a comment. They may read his reasoning and go, oh my goodness, no, you know what? Kevin's right. This is an issue. And they didn't see it. So that's sort of the process. So what you're seeing here is the first ballot circulation report. So what you have here is you have 9 in agreement and you have 1 disagreement. And this is why Ed Kepke disagreed. This is all public record. He doesn't see that you have an energized item when the only incoming conductor already has barriers on the overcurrent/switch device. Section states specifically that this is for a disconnecting device in the open position, so unsure where the energized item is located on a tap. So he's the only dissenting vote. Now, that's on the technical merits, right? So this is, I agree with the technical merits of the proposed TIA. They have to vote on that. Question 2 they have to answer on a TIA is, I agree that the subject is of an emergency nature for one or more reasons noted in the instruction box. And we had 15 eligible to vote, 5 were not returned. These are the ones that weren't returned. We have 9 in agreement, and they can add comments. So these are the standard that contains an error or omission. So this is basically just giving their reasons. And Ed Kepi doesn't feel and these are the reasons. A is the standard contains an error and omission. B is the NFPA standard contains a conflict with the NFPA standard or with another NFPA standard. C is the proposed TIA intends to correct a previously unknown existing hazard. D is the proposed TIA intends to offer to the public a benefit that would lessen or recognize a recognized known hazard or ameliorate a continuing dangerous condition or situation. E, the proposed TIA intends to accomplish a recognition of an advance in the art of safeguarding property or life where an alternative method is not in current use or is unavailable to the public. And then F is the proposed TIA intends to correct a circumstance in which the revised NFPA standard has resulted in an adverse impact on a product or method that was inadvertently overlooked in the total revision process or was without adequate technical, quote, safety justification for the action. So that is this document. So you see my change and you can see the circulation. And then what will happen is they'll post the preliminary results and then they will post the final results. And so here's a good example, 1597 on panel 13. So 1597 was balloted. There's the public comment circulation. And then there's the ballot final TIA. So I'm not sure what this one is, but this was a change in Article 706. And this is the ballot final. So you'll notice right at the top, it says final ballot, not circulation. So that's what that circulation indications mean. And you can find all of these. So now remember, I'm under the next edition tab and you have to scroll all the ways down to other committee information. And you'll find any of the correlating committee stuff. And you'll look at this. So this is next edition of the National Electrical Code. So look at this, amending ballot 70-105, and 70-105 happens to be a certified amending motion that occurred during the annual meeting that passed the floor. So what happens with these, now let's take a look. Let's go back to regulations. We're not done with TIAs. I'll get into certified amending motions later. All right, evaluation of emergency nature. We already read those, right? Whoa. Okay, we already read those. Publication. A proposed TIA that meets the provisions shall be published, indicating that the proposed tentative interim amendment has been forwarded to the responsible technical committee and the correlating committee. And then technical committee and correlating committee action, the proposed TIA shall be submitted for ballot. That's what we just saw. Shall be submitted for ballot and comment to the correlating committee, blah, blah, blah. So it has to go to the code panel. Then it has to go to the correlating committee. The correlating committee shall be separately balloted on both the merits and amendment and whether the amendment involves an issue of emergency nature. Any public comments consistent with the vote of any technical committee or correlating committee members shall be circulated. And then it goes to standards, all public comments and ballots, blah, 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 blah. All right, so then it goes to standards council, shall review the material submitted in accordance with 5.6C together with the record on any appeals, and shall issue the proposed tentative interim amendment, shall issue the proposed tentative as amended by the standards council, where acted on concurrently with the issuance of a new edition of the NFPA to which it relates, issue the tentative interim amendment as part of the new edition. So those that are being acted on at this point will be a part of that new edition when it is published. Reject the proposed TIA or return the proposed TIA to the technical committee with instruction. or direct a different action. So that's everything that Standards Council can do for it, to it. Effective date. Tentative interim amendments shall become effective 20 days after Standards Council issuance unless the president determines within his or her own discretion that the effective date shall be delayed pending the consideration of a petition to the board. And then publication of the TIA shall publish a notice of the issuance of each TIA. The notice in any shall indicate the tenant, okay, in any subsequent, and then you have applicability. So you've got, this is just publication. Now, thing to remember, if you commonly use this free access, the free access is the first printing of the National Electrical Code and does not include any subsequent TIAs. Keep that in mind. That free access, I'm going to say it again, does not include any of the accepted TIAs that occurred after the first printing of the book. If you sign into NFPA link, when the TIA is accepted and has gone through the entire process, that document will have the final TIAs incorporated into the language. So, and obviously, if you've got this in your hand, the TIAs aren't going to be a part of this. But if you, for example, bought a second printing or a third printing, whatever, later printing of this book, it may include those TIAs. My suggestion would be, for those that are important to you, print them out and possibly either keep them in this book somewhere or in a separate document that you, if you're a paper person like I am, if you love carrying your book around and you don't access the web, then you're going to want to print some of these TIAs that have been accepted. And even some of the erratas. I'm on the current prior edition. And if you go to, you have the Standards Council, there's your errata. So here's an example of an errata. Okay. This is 20-8. So hold on. So 700.6, this corrected F with the I. Now you can make these corrections in your book because that's just an errata. But if you don't, then, you're going to want to, make sure you update your book. So 70, let's see more. And I think, Brian, you said that check up at the top. Issued amendments, 20-8, reference 551. 20-8 is what you said. GFCI protection. And it's still before. Brian, you said 20-8 was the first TIA after issuance for 432.52. I'm not sure if you're looking at the right book, buddy. 20-8. 20-7 is 432.52. 430-7. Let's take a look at the date. It's still 2019, effective August 26, 2019. Anyway, I'm not sure, Brian, on what you're referring to there. So in any case, those are your TIAs for the current prior edition. You can go to the next edition and look at what's, now this is, think about it, next edition, 2023 code, we're already doing TIAs. And the sense of urgency to get a TIA in and accepted is so that it is a part of the first printing. Okay, and we did a few of those during the last cycle as well, as you can see. So you can come up and see what's going on with the TIAs. Let's go back to the regulations. Shall apply to the NFPA standard existing at the time of issuance. Tentative interim amendments issued after the public input closing date shall also apply when the text of the, all right. responsible for the shall process. Okay, when the Standards Council authorizes. All right, so that's your TIA. That's and remember, there's a whole section there. Now, a couple other important things. So when a TIA is balloted, let's take a look at an existing one. Next, let's take a look at mine, panel 10. Let's take a look at mine on panel 10. View. All right, so let's take a look at the text. So the initial ballot results of the technical committee, 15 eligible to vote, 5 did not return. You have 9 agree, 1 disagree, 9 agree, 1 disagree. There are 2 criteria to pass ballot. 1, affirmative 3/4 vote, and 2, simple majority, with both questions needed to pass ballot in order to recommend that the Standards Council issue this TIA. So you need 3/4 of a vote. Therefore, based on the responses received to date, the initial ballot results show this TIA is passing ballot. During the circulation, you may change your vote. Please complete the ballot on or before June 21st, 2022, which is tomorrow. While completing your ballot, please remember the following. A comment is required. Okay, so you need 3/4 of the vote, not 2/3 for 1. 2 criteria, simple majority and 3/4 of a vote. Make sense? All right. So that's the process for a TIA. And this is where you're going to find them. And to understand the rules and regulations around a TIA, this is where you'll see it in Section 5. Section 5, Tentative Interim Amendments, and that is found in the regulations governing development of NFPA standards. All right. Hey, Arvin Salvador, thanks for joining us, buddy. Good afternoon. We got William Snyder. Hey, we got Willie Snyder out there. Yeah, TIA log. All right, so we got Felix Sandoval in the house. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. All right, so time is at 12:58. All right, so let's talk about the CAMs, certified amending motions. Let's go back to the index here. Jeez, oh man. Certified amending motions. So we had the TIAs. We have formal interpretations. There's your Standards Council. Committee activities input. There's your comment. There's your NFPA technical meeting consideration. Okay, so let's start on page 25. Section 4.5. 4.4. All right. Okay, so that's page 24. The page numbers are on the left and right. See, they're over here. They're not at the bottom and the top. Boy, I'm not used to that. All right, so NFPA technical meeting consideration. All right, so here's where you have the whole process of what we call the acronym NITMAM. You might have heard the term NITMAM before, right? Notice of intent to make a motion. So this is performed. This is the NFPA annual meeting, which just occurred in Boston. NFPA technical meetings are meetings of the NFPA membership, right? All this good stuff. Any issuance, then no such many motions be filed. Okay, so let's just read this first one. NFPA technical meetings are meetings of the NFPA membership authorized by these regulations and NFPA bylaws at section 4.3 for the purpose of making recommendations to Standards Council on the issuance of NFPA standards. It's done through the filing and presenting of amending motions as further described in 4.5, the NFPA technical meeting provides the opportunity for further consideration of reviews. And I would say this is one of the very last times a technical debate can occur. After this, it's typically procedural. But this is where you would hear technical debate from the floor at the annual meeting. The NFPA technical meeting provides the opportunity. So any issue raised during the comment stage that was not resolved must be followed up with the filing and presentation of a valid amending motion at the appropriate NFPA technical meeting. Where no such amending motion has been filed and presented, the issue shall be considered resolved. So in some cases, you might have somebody put a NITMAM and then have it become a certified amending motion because they've planned to file an appeal. Okay, so that's it. It could be procedural in that regard so that they can file an appeal. So the requirement of a notice of intent to make a motion in order to make any amending motion. So you didn't like what happened in the first draft and you tried to fix it in the second draft and your public comments failed again, but you're going to try it one more time. You would make a motion, notice of intent to make a motion. The intending maker of a motion must file a notice of intent to make a motion in accordance with this section and comply with the sign-in requirement for certified motions prior to the NFPA technical meeting in accordance with section 2.7 of the convention rules. Convention rules, throw in another. I'm going to show you where the convention rules are. You come back over to technical committee, you go to guidelines and classifications, and you go to regulations and policies, and then you have technical meeting convention rules right here. You click on that. It's yet another document that you have to read. And what did this say? Section 2.7 of the convention rules. So 2.7 says sign-in requirement for certified amending motions prior to NFPA meeting. The persons authorized in the motions committee report to make a certified amending motion or his or her designated representative identified in writing by the authorized maker of the motion shall appear in person and sign in at the designated location in the meeting area. So I'll give you, there was one certified amending motion that was not heard from the floor because they were not present. But it was a certified amending motion. All right, so let's go back to the regulations. Filing of notice. The notice shall be filed with the Standards Council Secretary by the deadline. Okay. No, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to say a lot of blah, 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 blahs. That's a technical term. Felix, if NEC 2023 already has TIAs, will those TIAs be taken into the first? Yes. They will be a part of the first printing of the book, Felix. So that's why the sense of urgency. So that is part of the document that would be a part of the first printing. And when states adopt it, they will be adopting those TIAs. Good question. A submitter by written request to the Standards Council Secretary may withdraw the notice of intent to make a motion before the established deadline. Thereafter, the notice of intent to make a motion cannot be withdrawn without the approval of the motions committee. So the ball is in play. The notice may be filed by anyone who meets the requirements of 453.5C or 4536. Let's go there. 4535C. 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 4535. Okay. There's NFPA general information. A, B, C. Designated representative. The submitter of a public comment may designate a representative to make any amending motion that these rules would permit the submitter to make. The submitter shall designate such designated representative in written. So that's 353C. And then what was the other one? 4535C or 4536. Let's go look at 4536. 4536. 4535. Permitted amending motions and who may make such amending motions. Amendments to the Brian Rock Camp certified amending motion comes from the Nitman. Yes. Permitted amending motions who may make such amending motions at NFPA technical amendments to the second draft as published in the second draft report of the technical committee report can propose through the making of permitted amending motions that have been previously submitted through a valid NITMAM. I'm tired. The permitted amending motions who may make such motions and the effects of motions set forth in table 1, columns 1 through 3. Table 1, columns 1 through 3. Where's that? That's that down at the bottom. Table 1, 1 through 3. What are the permitted amending motions? Motion to accept. Who is authorized? The submitter of the public comment. So, motion to accept a public comment can only be a amending motion can only be made by the submitter of the public comment. Or if it's a committee, 45221. Motion to accept an identifiable part of a public comment. The submitter of the public comment. Motion to accept a committee comment. Anybody. Motion to accept an identifiable part of a committee comment. Anyone. Motion to reject a second revision. Anyone. Now, I think this would be like the cleanest one because if you have a, say for example, I don't know, there was a requirement that was submitted in 210.100 that said all equipment shall be eaten and no equivalent. And it was a new section and it was passed in the first draft and there were a bunch of comments to remove it. It was passed in the second draft. And now there is new language in the code that says all electrical equipment shall be eaten and no equivalent. Anybody could make a motion from the floor to reject that second revision. Now, anybody can make it. The amending, now let's take a look at what the title of this column is. What is the amendment or return that results from the successful amending motion? The amendment rejects the second revision and returns to the related first revision. Okay? And then, does the committee ballot on a successful amending motion? Yes, if there is a related first revision, in that case, the committee ballots the successful amending motion. Now, if, for example, the language did not pass in the first draft, but passed in the second draft. So let's say that I made a play and I said, you know what? I want eaten and no equivalent for all electrical equipment. And the first draft failed. And I came back in a public comment and I said, eaten and no equivalent. And in the second draft, it passed. If the certified amending motion that I'm sure my competitors would probably file and argue at the floor, if it passes the floor to remove that section because it was not a part of the first draft, it is not balloted by the committee. It just happens. There's no going back to the code panel to say, do you agree with what happened at the floor? Because this says, yes, if there is a related first revision. In that case, the committee ballots the successful amending motion. If it's not a part of that first revision, it just simply comes out. And you'll even see it. If you want to see the certified amending motions, you go to the next edition and you will see a notice of motions committee report. And nope, that's not what we want. Here's what we want. We want what I'm looking for. I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the meeting agenda for the annual meeting. Where is it? Where is the meeting? Other committee information? Annual meeting. Where's the link for the annual meeting? All right. I want the annual meeting. So there's the NITMAM closing. There's this. Withdrawn CAMs. NFPA technical meeting. Oh, here we go. There's the results of the voting. NFPA Standards Council. Okay, regulations. There. 2022 technical meeting agenda. Go to this. View. Now, you will see the CAMs. And I'm going to come down to the National Electrical Code. All right, so here are all of the CAMs that are part of the agenda. And I'm looking for some words, which I thought was in there. Hold on. It was up here before. Now I don't see it. CAM passed, CAM failed. There was an indication on some of these that said, oh, man, I could have swore it was in here. Results of voting. Submit or substantiation. Nope, it's not there. Anyway, some of these are not balloted if they would have passed, and they didn't pass. So these are the results of the certified amending motions. I could have swore, but because they didn't pass the floor, they were not balloted. I mean, you don't have the indication, but they would not have been. Some of these that just removed text would not have been balloted. All right, so you have so here's now let's just follow this. You know who can make a certified amending motion, who can make a notice of intent to make a motion. Now let's go back up. I don't want to make you dizzy, so let me find the right section here. Time is it? It's 1:13. Content of proposed tentative. That's your TIA. It's chapter section 4. Okay, so all right, I believe this is it here. When an NFPA standard is recommended at the NFPA technically without amendments, we know, okay, where due to lack of quorum, we had a quorum, where amendments are made. Requirements, there we go. So filing notice. Content of the notice, consideration of motions. When a technical committee report, at least one notice of intent. So you have to meet the criteria, and then it becomes certified. So what NFPA does, what staff does, is they look at the notice of intent to make a motion. They look who the submitter was. What is he trying to do? They go down to that table and make sure you can be certified that you are allowed to make that motion. And if you are allowed to make the motion, then you become a certified amending motion that is reviewed during the annual meeting. Publication, okay, membership. All right, so, and then it's voted on at the floor. But then let's take a look at next edition, and let's take a look at some of the certified amending motions. And I think panel 2 panel 2 had one. I know that because I'm on panel 2. All right. Oh, wait, I got to scroll down. I got to scroll down to other. So we come down. There's the first draft. This is the second draft. And then you'll scroll down to other committee information. And it's not a TIA. It would be a committee. So you would come down and say panel 2. Amendment ballot. That is a certified amending motion that passed the floor. Ballot amendment 70-105. So if we come over here to the results, 70-105. Let me scroll up to 70-105. I want to just make sure we close the gaps here. Here it is, 70-105. And it says CAM passed. So the amendment ballot text is being submitted for ballot of the technical committee pursuant to section 4.6 in table 1. Let's take a look. CAM not pursued. Let's find another one that passed. Failed. Passed. The amendment ballot text is being submitted. All right. Let's see if there's any that just is being submitted. The ballot is required. No ballot is required pursuant to section 4.6 and table 1. So here's an example of what I just said. So this is CAM 70-83. And what is 70-83? Let's go to 70-83. CAM 70-83. Going back up to the top, and we're going to take a look at the CAMs again. 70-83. So Control F. Control F. 70-83. All right. And I got to do a next. Here it is. So this is removing text that was accepted in the second draft. Because it was a part of the second draft and it wasn't a part of the first draft, the motion that passed the floor doesn't get balloted. That's an important thing to remember. So the no ballot is required pursuant to section 4.6 in table 1. So, and I got confused on this because I remember last cycle something passed the floor and it never went back to the code making panel to get balloted, and I couldn't and we were talking about during these meetings on what had to go back to the code panel to get balloted. Some do and some don't. It depends on the rules and regs. So you got to watch those closely. All right, so let's go back down, and I wanted to show you panel 2. You go all the way down to the bottom where it says other committee information. So I go to code making panel 2, and there's a balloted 70-105. Let's go to 70-105. 70-105. I'm going to close that. 70-105. So let's do this. Control F. 70-105. Certified amending motion 70-105. I want to find the actual, here we go. 70-105. Here it is here. So this is bathrooms. This requirement shall become effective January 1st, 2025. So this is in 210.12, adding to the list of rooms, bathrooms, for 210.12, which is AFCI protection for January 1st, 2025. So now I come to this and you will see what it says. It says at the NFPA technical meeting held June 9th, the NEC was amended by the acceptance of the following. Accept committee comment number 8204, follow the actions of membership is being submitted for ballot of the technical committee pursuant to 4.6 and table 1 of the regulations, which we just read. I love it when it all comes together. Ballots can be accessed to this link. All right, so then it says you must hit submit save, blah, blah, blah. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bang. And that's the language that is being voted on. So that is the ballots. And it is bathrooms, requirement shall become effective. So, and then it'll go through the same process. So let me see if there's other ballot amendments. Let's take a look at a different code panel. And there's amended ballots. This is all results of the meeting in the technical committee. So when it says amendment ballot, that's not a TIA. That is due to certified amending motions. Amended ballot, no ballot. So this one is no ballot, panel 6, and I believe that's the one we just looked at. And it doesn't give you the language. It just it's not a balloted. So and then you'll see the circulation, and then you'll see the final vote of the panel, just like we do the TIAs. So the regulations. So it appears bathrooms are getting added to 210.12. David, it depends, right? It depends on. Okay, it depends on whether or not it passes the technical committee. So the technical committee still has to vote on all of these, on not all of these, just those that have to be balloted. All right, so that is the TIA and the certified amending motions, the TIAs and the CAMs. That's where you find them. You know where to look. You have it for the previous edition and the next edition. We covered whether it will be a part of the first revision or not. We covered whether or not it's a part of that free access link, or if it's the NFPA link. We understand the 3/4 vote, etc. Trying to think of what else. And that's all I have to say about that. So I think hopefully that gave you a little insight on where to find the certified amending motions, where to find the TIAs, where to find the rules and regulations that govern TIAs and CAMs. And hopefully that gives you some more insight to the process. All right, it's overtime. I went over an hour. I apologize for those of you who just wanted to stick to that hour. I tried and I missed it by that much. All right, everybody, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for what you do for the electrical industry. Thanks for what you do for electrical safety. David Engelhardt, Willie Snyder, Brian Rock, Felix Sandoval. Who else is out there? Nihad El Sharif, David Engelhardt, Felix, Robert from Omaha. Hopefully I got all, at least I got the chatters out there. So stay in tune, stay in touch, please. And remember, and Alvin Salvador, thank you. And remember to stay safe and healthy. See you on Friday for my Q&A Friday. We will be going live. Thank you. Thanks, Willie. Take care. Stay safe. God bless.